If you find this summary helpful, start with a free trial for detailed summaries on Apple Podcasts and Spotify using link in descriptions. Here is key point discussed in podcast. This one research study will change how you think about your entire life. But what's really interesting is that even when we think we're making our own decisions, we're often influenced by what we think others believe. And that's where collective illusions come in. It's when most people in a group go along with something they don't privately agree with, simply because they think most other people agree with it. It's a great illustration of how we can all get caught up in doing something just because we think everyone else wants to do it, even if we don't really want to ourselves. And it's not just limited to personal relationships, it can happen on a societal level too. The way our brains estimate what our group believes is also really fascinating. Apparently, our brains assume that the loudest voices repeated the most are the majority. But the research shows that's just not true. In fact, the loudest voices are often the fringe, and they don't represent the majority at all. We're constantly being bombarded with information and opinions, and it's easy to get caught up in thinking that everyone else believes something just because we see it repeated over and over again. But the truth is, most people are self-silencing. They're withholding their true opinions because they think others will disagree. And that's a really dangerous place to be. When we can't be honest with each other, we start to lose trust and feel isolated. It's a false polarization that can have serious consequences. We need to be willing to override that error signal in our brains and go against what we think others want us to believe. Only then can we start to break free from these collective illusions and live more authentic lives. You know, it's really interesting when you think about it. We're living in a world where we're constantly being bombarded with information, and a lot of that information is coming from sources that are intentionally trying to manipulate us. Foreign entities are using bots to spread disinformation and create a collective illusion. They're targeting especially Gen Z, trying to convince them that their communities believe things they don't, and that they need to belong. And it's working. We're seeing a generation of people who are growing up thinking that the number one aspiration in life is to be famous, and that's just not true. But here's the thing. When we start to believe these illusions, we start to self-silence. We start to conform to what we think other people want us to be, rather than being true to ourselves. And that has some serious consequences. Research has shown that self-silencing is linked to higher rates of cardiovascular disease, strokes, high cholesterol, and even mental health issues like anxiety and depression. It's like we're literally making ourselves sick by trying to fit in. And it's not just our physical health that suffers. When we self-silence, we also start to lose our sense of purpose and our sense of belonging. And that's a really lonely place to be. But here's the thing. We have the power to change this. We have the power to start being authentic, to start being true to ourselves. And that's not always easy. But it's worth it. Because when we're authentic, we start to feel a sense of confidence and self-worth that we never thought possible. We start to see the world in a different way, as a place of abundance and possibility rather than scarcity and fear. And it's not just about us as individuals. When we start to be authentic, we start to create a ripple effect. We start to inspire others to be authentic too, and that's when real change happens. That's when we start to see a shift in our culture and our society. It might be as simple as saying no to something that doesn't feel right, or saying yes to something that does. The point is, we have the power to create the life we want. We have the power to be authentic, to be true to ourselves, and to create a world that's more honest, more compassionate, and more just. So, let's do it. Let's start being authentic, and see where it takes us. It's not something you can just achieve and then be done with it. It's a journey of growth, discovery, and change. And the amazing thing is that it's never too late to start. No matter how old you are or where you're starting from, you can begin to cultivate authenticity in your life. One of the key things that Dr. Rose emphasized is the importance of questioning your own beliefs. He shared a simple exercise that he uses, which is to ask yourself why you believe what you believe. This can be a really powerful way to get to the root of what's driving your thoughts and behaviors. And it's amazing how often we discover that our beliefs are not actually our own, but rather something we've adopted from society or our upbringing. Dr. Rose also talked about the concept of let them and let me. He explained that when we try to control others, we're actually creating an environment where they feel like they need to conform and fit in. But when we give people the freedom to be themselves, we're actually creating a space for authenticity to flourish. And then the same is true for ourselves. When we give ourselves permission to be our true selves, we're able to tap into our own authenticity and live a more fulfilling life. What would happen if we created a society where people felt free to be themselves, without fear of judgment or rejection? Dr. Rose also shared some fascinating research on social trust. He explained that when we feel like we can't be ourselves, we're less likely to trust others. But when we feel like we can be authentic, we're more likely to trust others and feel a sense of community. One of the things that really resonated with me was when Dr. Rose talked about the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. He explained how a poet and playwright named Václav Havel was able to bring about massive social change through his emphasis on authenticity and personal responsibility. It's a really inspiring story, and one that shows the power of individual action to create change. He explained that it's the small, everyday actions that we take that can add up to make a big difference. Whether it's speaking up at work, volunteering in our community, or simply being more mindful in our daily lives, these small actions can help us cultivate authenticity and create positive change in the world. It's not about making some grand sweeping change, but rather about finding those little moments where we can be true to ourselves. So maybe it's as simple as saying no to something you don't want to do, or speaking up when you normally wouldn't. Whatever it is, the key is to start small and build from there. And what's really interesting is that when we do take those small acts of authenticity, our brains actually respond with a reward signal. It's like our brain is saying, hey, you're doing something right. Keep doing that. And that can lead to a whole chain of events where we start to feel more confident, more empowered, and more like ourselves. But here's the thing, it's not just about us as individuals. When we start living more authentically, we actually create a ripple effect that can impact those around us. Dr. Rose talked about how happiness is contagious, and when we're around people who are happy and fulfilled, we're more likely to feel that way too. Because the truth is, we all have the power to create change in our lives and in the world around us. We just have to start by being true to ourselves.